Welcome to Hikigai Studios. I'm your host, Lalita Ramamurthy, and we are the innovation hub of Hikigai Inc., which is a health AI startup dedicated to making healthcare globally equitable and personalized. At Hikigai, we believe the future of medicine is autonomic care, moving past simple automation to create intelligent systems that restore the human reason for being to the clinical experience. We host this podcast to spotlight the pioneers bridging the gap between high tech research and human centered care. And today I have absolute pleasure to bring in Florence Demroze to join us as an associate professor at the University of Stavanger and the co-founder of the IoT for Care group. Florence is at the forefront of AIoT and active assisted living, building the technology that helps people maintain their independence and dignity. Welcome on board, Florence. It's such a pleasure to have you, and we're really looking forward to a fun conversation and some great insights from you, especially being an academician.
Thank you very much, Lalita. Very honored to be here today, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. And we want to kind of, split up our queries to you in different angles. But the first thing is definitely to give a little bit more background about who you are and where you come from. It's a very interesting background, especially bringing the cultural aspects of it, which we discussed a few minutes ago. Your journey spans Albania, Italy, and now Norway. Have these different cultures and healthcare perspectives shaped how you think about designing technology for people with special needs? Would certainly love to hear perspective from that.
Yeah, definitely. So, as you said, I am originally from Albania, and I moved to Italy when I was, I think, 14 years old, and then I lived in Italy for almost 20 years, and now I moved here to Norway. In the middle, as we were discussing early on, I have been also living in the US for some time, in Germany, in Ireland for some time before actually finally setting up here with my family. But yeah, so there are three, at least, of these three main countries. So Albania, Italy, and Norway. There are very big differences, as you can understand. So Albania is a very poor country, and probably still today is quite evolving a lot. And one of the main evolutions that we see is also in healthcare.
Mhm.
But it's still like very poor from an infrastructure point of view, okay, from a formation point of view, and so on and so forth. And also, in this kind of countries, main push that the government gives is not for sure related to healthcare, but it will be mainly and is mainly related to industry. Okay, so that's something there. Honestly, I haven't been very in connection with the healthcare system in Albania, luckily, also, let's say. Even if every time I go there, I try to avoid to go to the hospitals. But still, from what I see, I keep myself very informed, both for Albania and Italy, and for sure here in Norway, about how things go. So
Okay.
basically, there is a limited infrastructure there, there's limited formation, technology is not very used, and if something has to be used in healthcare in Albania, it has to be really low cost and robust, and also to be very user friendly, because also the digitalization is not very at high level. Mainly the doctors and healthcare personnel are quite in a certain age, let's say, not old, say, but for sure they are in the middle of their life, and the formation have probably been from the communist period of Albania. So this can be something that has to be considered. Then you have moving to Italy. Italy is well known for being one of the best countries in Europe and also in the world when it comes to healthcare, even if lately someone can also disagree with this.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot and very strong background in research, in healthcare, in clinical collaborations, the technologies, and so on. You see, if you look a little bit more in deep to recent articles, they keep doing a lot of innovation in healthcare from both technology, but also from the actual clinical part. It's very interdisciplinary also when it comes to the research in Italy. However, today there is a limit that I see in Italy, which is, again, Italy is very well known for industry. Okay, and also the main focus in Italy is to go towards industry. So when there is research, there is a lot of research when it comes to industry. There is more funding when it comes to industry and so on and so forth. And the focus, since it's also a very big country compared to Norway or Albania, with almost 55, 57 million people, the focus is not very on the healthcare part. So it's a little bit different, but still, like from a research perspective, it's very advanced. So the Italian researchers, clinicians are very, very well known worldwide. Then you have Norway. Norway is a very wealthier state, very nice because it's a trust-based country. They trust you. The trust is in the middle of everyday life. So you don't need to show, let's say, proofs, but the word is very valuable here. They have a very strong public healthcare system, but as everywhere, someone can disagree. You disagree with what you have. You don't disagree with what you don't have. So if you go in Albania and so on, there is a very high digital maturity. I am impressed here when I talk with let's say elderly. So elderly, I mean over 70 or 75. They are very well connected. They can use digital tools. They know how to use them and so on. So this is very impressive here. And the same is also from all the population in general. So they are very digitalized. So when you go to hospitals, nurses are very well formed when it comes to technology, doctors the same. And so now I'm not talking about very advanced technologies, but for sure they know the basics. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. I think that's a very clear, transparent distinction that you've given us for three different nations. And correct me if I'm wrong. So Albania comes in the Balkans area, right? Okay, yeah. So yeah, that and you clearly define the variations and the strata and how they're paying attention to the different aspects, because I think Albania is still trying to figure out a lot of the security and the home and other aspects and food aspects where healthcare probably is not even a priority yet. So I
Yeah.
think
So
it's
basically, the healthcare in Albania is still based on family members, most of it. So there is no concept of care homes for elderlies, for example.
wow.
If they have that, they have it in a very limited number, because still everything is mostly connected to the family part when it comes to the healthcare. Children
Interesting.
who take care of elderlies and so on and so forth.
Okay. All right. So now we're coming into specifically for the power of AIoT, your work at the intersection of AI and the Internet of Things, right? When we combine wearable sensors with AI, what becomes possible in healthcare that was simply a dream maybe 10 or 15 years ago? Can you kind of give us some realistic examples of how that,
Yeah, sure.
yeah?
Sure. You have seen probably a lot of research activities, a lot of technological outcomes in this direction. But now, when you just think about AI and wearables and the IoT infrastructures in general, nowadays we have what we call continuous sensing. It was called ubiquitous sensing. It was called pervasive sensing 10 years ago. Now it looked like very like innovative at that time, but now it's something normal. Okay, as I tell to the clinicians, give me what you need and I will build a system that can monitor your patients every day, everywhere, within a few weeks. So it's really something that has these days is becoming very normal. Okay, so it provides us a lot of capabilities. Just think about contextual information, which leads also then to contextual AI part. So we can easily understand the context where people is living, how they are communicating, how they are behaving in the environment, for example. And from that, you move to other contexts these days. You probably have heard about agentic AI. So imagine having AI inside your wearables, which take decisions for your advantages, for your well-being, and so on and so forth, enabling what we call real-time intervention. We have been discussing this years about, we started with, I'm probably still young, let's say. My colleagues started with trying to diagnose using wearables. So diagnose diseases, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, or other kind of diseases. And then they moved to prediction of the disease. Okay? So saying, yeah, we are able to diagnose, but we would like to know this even before that the diagnosis becomes real. So we want to predict future diagnoses 1, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years in advance. I'm still talking about just wearables, no? And then you have also a lot of other genetic analysis that you can apply, actually. But nowadays you have also projects which try to prevent. Okay, so they say, okay, let's use wearables and AI to have a good mapping of the user and see that by predicting something that will take place in 10 years from now, if we can prevent it somehow, and again using wearables. So, for example, can we help someone to gain or to learn to treat themselves better, to have a better lifestyle, in order to reduce the risk of having a specific diagnosis that we know that this person will have if keeps doing the same lifestyle and so on. So this is what have been enabled, I think, with this connection between wearables, AI, and many other data sources.
That is fantastic, Florence, and this definitely is so reflective of what we are talking about at Heikigai too, because we are definitely looking at not just clinical data, we're looking at the contextual and the whole picture of an individual, where the economic data, the social data, the emotional data, the mental or the cognitive data is all put together in perspective to predict some of the disease conditions, and also probably to better diagnose and even treat some of these chronic conditions that happen. So that's pretty impressive that you're talking and that you're in that research arena to actually bring that firsthand into discussion. So this brings us to the assisting without controlling aspect, right? And active and assisted living, AAL, if you may acronym that, is often about helping the people stay independent, which is so important, especially when you are at a certain age. And we are a growing older population in different countries, and definitely more on in the European countries. We do see that the age is definitely higher in number. So philosophically, how do you design a system that basically assists with becoming, paternalistic, and how do you ensure you're supporting autonomy rather than just reducing it?
Yeah, so that's very, 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 very good question, deep question actually. And you also mentioned Europe as a country, and that's completely true. So I normally start when I do some kind of presentations to stakeholders, I start with that example. Europe is among the most fast aging 33 countries in the world. Europe has, I think, of these 33 countries. So the only one which is beating us is Japan. So all the other following countries are actually European. And in, I think, around the 2010, actually, the European Union opened a very big project and call for European fundings, which was called ambient assisted living, if you have ever heard about that. But the problem in there was that they were creating systems which just assist. So it was the same thing as having an elderly, for example, going to a care home. You know, when elderlies go to the care home, their self-efficiency, their autonomy goes down very rapidly. And actually, in a few years, that's bad to say, but probably we will lose them. And then they notice this, that also using the technology in the same way. So having a technology that does things for us, for the elderlies, is not helping the actual elderlies. It's helping them physically, but it's not helping them from a personal self-efficiency point of view. And this is why they started then discussing about active and assisted living, which was more about empowering these people. So how can we help the people to be self-efficient? How can we help these elderly, for example, or people with specific needs to stay at home as long as possible in autonomy without being sent or being hospitalized or being transferred to care homes? So that was the goal of active and assisted living. And in this direction, what I started doing at the beginning of my PhD, I started designing what we call virtual coaching systems. So coaching systems to help people learn. Now, for example, you just drink water or coffee, I don't know. But one of the things was, how can we help elderlies who, when they enter the 75 and over, they start losing the feeling of needing to drink. So they don't need to drink, but they actually have to drink. And there is a lot of high mortality rate for that specific issue, dehydration. Okay, so for example, you need to train these people to make them learn that they have to drink, okay, because they need it, even they don't feel it. The same thing with medications. Someone who goes from working to retirement, is around the 60s to 70s as an age. No, now probably it will become a little bit higher based on what they are changing rules and laws. But the point is that in that age is when also people start having the first issues, physical issues, the first diagnosis. And they never learn that they have to keep and maintain a therapy in their life. So, for example, taking medications, okay, you have to take a pill every 6 hours. If someone tells to me, I will forget.
Mhm.
Okay, so that was the same thing. So we needed active assisted living systems. We needed systems which train us, empower us in remembering and acquiring new behaviors. So that was the goal in that research field. Help people acquire new behaviors, help people empower themselves, help people evolve and better integrate to the next phase of their life. I hope
Interesting.
that was.
Oh wow, yeah, you kind of just the bullseye is what I have here from you, because I have elderly people at home. My father-in-law is 93 and my mother-in-law is 83, and this is exactly what we're looking at, to make them as independent and as empowering as possible. But then catching them early on to be able to teach them these patterns and these habits is so important to make their living more autonomic rather than more dependent. So yeah, this totally kind of gave me a clear answer. I wish we could bring you over to North America and have you create more tools for us. We need more of these in this in
I need to ask permission to my wife in that case, but yeah,
That's a good one.
thank you.
Yeah, but it definitely kind of reflects so clearly on the autonomic care that's required. But just an extension on that question, Florence, if I may, at what age do you really think that needs to be started? Because today we're talking about a senior citizen being 60 and plus, right? But should they start it maybe at 50 or at 45? What is an age that really kind of brings that pattern learning to you and makes it more like a you know a reflective or a motor skill that is easier to do and then out of memory? When do you have to catch them?
Now, that's a very good question, and I don't feel very specialized in that field to give a good answer, let's say. But again, it's something I think is a age that probably is changing also these days.
Mm,
So something that I can say today, now, for example, 5 years ago, everyone was saying 65.
mhm.
With the issue that the people who was 65 5 years ago, okay, is people coming from a different era of technology. So they will probably never accept to use a wearable like this one, okay. So they will never use a smartwatch. They want their old fashioned smartwatch. Okay, so that was at that time. Nowadays, I think since everyone is using devices, wearables, phones, smart systems, and so on, definitely that age can go way back. It can start even with us today, like at 20, at 30, at 40. So I think it depends then on what you want people to learn and what you want people to avoid learning or to exclude from their behavioral pattern. So it depends on the specific use case, but I think it will be easier in the future at least to move
Thanks.
this date a little bit back, try to avoid bad behaviors and to learn new behaviors and good behaviors as soon as possible.
Okay, well, that definitely is a reminder for me personally, so I'll take that with a pinch of salt to learn it.
Also for me.
Thank you so much. So this is about the next thing we're talking about is the translation gap, right? The IoT for care. You've co-founded the IoT for care group with Verona. And what is the gap in traditionally that made you think, we need to build something different here? How do you ensure your work actually ends up into real homes versus not just being an academic journals or just part of a research
Yeah.
project?
So that's actually, and very honestly, it was like a contextual choice because it was when I was back in Italy, I think around 2020, 21. I would just finished my PhD and I was in a bigger group of researchers who was mainly working on hardware related things. Okay? So it was more about myself. I started my PhD on hardware security, which was not related to what I'm doing these days. So that was more a contextual thing, because we started looking around, at least in the University of Verona. University of Verona, and Verona itself is very well known for the medical studies programs and so on. They are very good, very advanced. And we saw that there was a specific needs outside. We started thinking about these coaching systems. We probably were not aware of everything was happening around the world, because there is a lot of people and a lot of research groups there were at that time doing similar things. Okay. So, but we were, because it was Italy, as I said. So it was, the main focus was not healthcare, at least in my region. It was more industry, since Veneto is one of the most industrialized regions in Italy. And we saw that in our department, in our university, there was no, let's say, a transversal group between different departments, in particular health related and tech related. And this is why we discussed and we decided, after that we started working on Parkinson's, on Alzheimer's, on people with special need. We decided with my former supervisor and some colleagues in the health department to create this group. Okay, so that was the need that we saw. And then from there, we started doing a lot of research, mainly research, helped also by many small projects. Probably for Italy, they were big projects that we got. That ended up with what you said. So we started, for example, creating co-hosting houses for people with special needs, with different diagnoses, to live together. So we had a very nice projects in this field. So we had some smart homes empowered with our technologies, which aimed to put together, for example, someone living with Down syndrome with someone living with cerebral paralysis, for example, and to make them live together and help each other in the daily life. Because, in this case, this population, they also survive to their parents, who are their main caregivers. So we identified this need, for example, so that we need to help them live autonomously. So this is what brought together the idea of saying, okay, let's create the IoT for Care research group. And I think we were very successful in our small, because still we are not comparable with other groups around Europe, and for sure not US as research. But we did our best to come out with something which was also very useful for the people.
Well, I am super impressed just about the fact that you've chosen such uh, underprivileged group that actually do get ignored many a times, and who are not. But the fact that you're talking about how you are able to make them live together with the cerebral palsy and the Down syndrome, that's kind of so innovative and so you know intriguing to understand, especially if you have the right tools to do so. Personally, I've worked with a Down syndrome child, and I know her for the last 40 years now. And it's pretty impressive that you're talking about that. So all of these do come with, the privacy security trade-off, right? I mean, we're talking about to provide these coaching. Your systems collect massive amount of information. Data is everything today. And then we're talking about what are you doing with this data and how are they moving? How do you navigate the thin line between providing the safety and being invasive?
Yeah, normally when people ask me, because this is the always people that I get. First, the question I always get when I am presenting something. Now, first thing is, from my point of view, at least from the research point of view, this is not the field of research for me. Okay, I am more on the application creation, and then I leave this to the experts. From a personal perspective, what I tell to myself, but also if someone asks me, I'm sorry to say, but normally I say that if you want the service, if you want the system, you need to also take with you the drawbacks. So, and the other thing I say is that basically these days, as we live these days, we have already gave away our privacy far back in time. Okay, so I keep accepting whatever comes to my phone from big tech companies, from social networks or providers of services, because I need those services. So if I can say no, okay, yes, I say no, but that's what and how we live these days. From my point of view, and from what I see, and I know people who works in these directions, when it comes now to the integration of wearables and AI, for example, there are specific fields of AI which are actually working for that. So how to reduce the privacy issues. For example, you can nowadays we work also on edge intelligence, so edge AI, which means that nothing goes out from the edge, so from the wearable, for example, or the device that you are using. And this is, for example, related to federated learning and so on. So that's the best thing I can do personally. And we try to do when we do this kind of research, and when we want to go, let's say, also with some prototypes and so on, we do everything on the edge, even if we still need at the beginning to do something on the cloud yet. And in that case, we follow all the rules that the government bodies give us. We have very strict processes, for example, to apply here in Norway. It's, I think, one of the most organized ones. We have specific people that we ask. We need to use specific databases. We cannot use cloud. So earlier I said cloud, but actually it's not cloud. It's our specific databases in specific rooms in our university that we can use, which are certified in a certain way with certain standards that are appropriate for that kind of data. And for sure, having all the signatures from people that we involve, being very transparent with what data we collect, how they will be saved, what information can be retrieved, okay, and what information will be published. That is the best we can do from our side. And I think this is what researchers in general can do from their side.
Yeah, and you're so true about the fact that, it's way past, maybe already 20 years past since our privacy has been kind of infringed, and we've already kind of been um, dormantly sharing a lot of information. But needless to say, I think when you are looking at new research and more groundbreaking research, you do need the proper data to be collected, and I think the system is already supporting you in Norway to do that. So now this brings us to scaling for the aging population, right? You talked about Norway that has high life expectancy, and I'm sure they're doing something right to do that, and but systems aren't scaling for independent living. Is successful scaling about the technology being cheaper or simpler, or is it more about it being systemic shift in how we think about aging? What do you see as the ground reality there?
So there is a very nice article here that I was reading when I arrived here. There was, I think, a minister, Norwegian minister, who was having this discussion in a panel. And what she actually said, she said that if we want to be good in scaling, as we need in Norway, we will need that 70 or 80% of the high school students, of the pupils going out from high school, we will need that 70 or 80% of them should start a medical related or health related education in university. That was the situation. So imagine 70 or 80% of the high school students to move into healthcare. Okay, that is not possible. Okay, it's crazy. But that was the point. So if we need to scale human only scaling, no, we will need that kind of organization. Okay, which is not possible. So then I see also, this is why I really like here, as I said at the beginning from question one, because I saw here that the healthcare oriented research, that the healthcare oriented investments are very, very impressive, and they are very welcome. This is why I also choose to stay here, because I saw that they want to scale. They want to scale with technology without losing the people, because people is always in the loop here. The healthcare workers, they are always in the loop. So we work a lot with municipalities. Municipalities are very open in opening and using technologies to help their workers and to reduce their burnout, reduce their overtimes, and so on and so forth. It's not just, we don't want to hire people. They can't hire people because there is not enough people, first of all. And this is why they want to have a very good closed loop interaction between the healthcare workers and the technology. So they are very open in this kind of system. And they have been using a lot of automation for monitoring people, a lot of proactive alerts. They use many technologies at home and also in the hospitals or care homes. So we work with companies and which provide these kind of technologies. And normally here is most of the care homes is also public. So it's not owned by privates, it's owned by the municipality itself. And also the people living at home alone, for example, or a couple of elderlies living at home alone, I'm just making the example of elderlies, they are followed up systematically by municipality workers, which is something that I haven't seen outside. So we know nurses going every day or every other day or at least once a week to check how the people at home are doing, just to keep them at home as long as possible. Okay, so this is how they are trying to scale in here. But they are very, very open to technology. And the nice
Interesting.
thing is, if I can add, I see a lot of nurses, for example, who come out with very nice startup ideas for how to use technology. I have seen this here. Just in a small, let's say, city as Stavanger, I have seen 3 or 4 startups, which now are some of them becoming companies, which are actually coming out from nurses. Okay, so they came out with a need, so they identify the need, and then they start discussing with tech-related people, and they come out with some solution to solve those needs. So this is
Wow.
how it's going on, at least.
Yeah, I think I'm going to move to Norway. It's interesting, very interesting. I think you definitely are giving us some very encouraging feedback on the healthcare system and very impressive. But you personally are bridging a lot of disciplines, right? You work with clinicians, you're working with engineers, and you're also working with AI researchers. What strategies have you found effective in bridging these worlds? I mean, they all speak different languages. And what is the
Yeah.
advice that you would have for others to try to do that? Because bringing them all together to try and commonly agree on a particular aspect and work together, that sometimes definitely kind of has a lot of clashes, but I think you'll be able to give us some insight there.
Yeah, so that's a very good point. I think personally, I think is one of the only good things that I think about myself. I really think that I'm good in communication. In particular, I think I'm good in understanding the people and the context I am talking with. So for sure, I will not talk to an engineer as I talk to a doctor. Also because, as I said, I come from a country, Albania, but also Italy, where I lived for most of my life, where doctors are a special category, let's say, when it comes to communication and how you have to reference to the doctors. No, so you have to actually talk in a certain way to know how to talk, to know how to communicate, and so on and so forth. So definitely communication is the main feature that everyone has to have. I tell this to my students. I try to make them talk as much as possible just for this purpose. Knowing to communicate, knowing to talk, okay, they will be able to then have communication with different categories of people. And this is something that I try to do every day. Even with my PhD students, I always like to bring them in meetings, even if it's not very common sometimes. Okay, if it's not strictly related to what they need to do, just bring them in the meetings, try to make them understand how it works to communicate with clinicians, how it works to communicate with engineers, how it works to communicate with family members. So we do a lot of stakeholder discussions, workshops, for example. So when we have projects, we have workshops with stakeholders from different sides, companies, municipalities, doctors, and so on. And it's always nice to learn new things and to try to use and to refine your communication skills. I think that's the best thing that you can do. And for sure, know a little bit of what you're doing and also know a little bit of what they are doing. And try and set the boundaries, not talk about things that you don't know, basically. So
Sure,
very
sure.
basic things.
Yeah, no, I think you've already kind of reflected that very well. You first of all, I think before you communicate, you listen really well. So I think that's very important. Majority of our communication has to be 90% listening and 10% talking. So I think then you become a better communicator. So I think you definitely have given us some great insights on that. So that's bringing us to our final question before I go for the rapid fire, Florence. What is the advices for early careers, for whether it be for engineers? I know you've kind of touched upon this, but then for engineers and research for listening, what are your top three pieces of advice for somebody entering in the AI field and in the healthcare space today? Because it's kind of changing. The whole, the scene is changing with AI being infused into everything, and it's going to be part of a healthcare in one way or other. So what's that three pieces that you would kind of talk to for people coming into the field?
So yeah, so the main thing for sure, in particular when it comes to research, is to first of all build depth in what you're doing, build knowledge in what you're doing, detailed knowledge, to know what you're talking about, coming back to what we just mentioned. So you need to know what you're talking about. And then the second part will be go to the field, try to see what's going on. Again, as you said, we just mentioned it. We organize a lot of meetings, a lot of workshops with stakeholders from different fields. And that's definitely something that you need to do, because this will maintain your horizon very open, because that's an error that most of us does. We stay very focused on what we want to do without looking around. But if you don't look around, then you will not see the final outcome. And then the third thing related to the second one is, and for sure the first one, is to think how this will be affecting people in their daily life in the future. So how will this be deployed for them? How will they use it? And so on. So this, I think, are the three main points that I try to tell these things to my students normally, because I think this helps a lot. At least it helped me.
Well,
So
yes, this is great advice. I think you've definitely covered some very important pieces of advice here. So now this brings us to our rapid fire, right? So we have a warning label for you. If you could put one warning label or put a warning label on every AI system, what would that be? Or what would it say?
it's not always 100% accurate. So based on how you use it and where you use it, you need to decide if you want to use it. So that will
Fair
be
enough.
definitely. Now it's not one. It was a long phrase, but
That's okay. That's all right.
yeah.
That's okay. No hard and fast here. Okay. All right. You have a billboard in front of you. You get a billboard in front of every data scientist in this world. What is the one sentence that goes on it?
Data scientist. Okay, data is more important than AI, from my point of view,
I like that. Yes. Data is
because
everything, even
yeah.
before it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, if you look, for
No
example,
data. Yeah. If there is no
every
data,
big every big achievement in AI has been achieved after some very nice data set that they used, even if the algorithm was there like 100 years before. I'm just saying 100 years, but 30 years before. Okay, so I think data is still very important, even if we have a lot of data now. So we need to handle it.
excellent. I think I like that statement a lot. Okay, now we go to the desk check, right? What's the nerdiest thing on your desk right now?
I think I have a small card that I play when I controlled one that I play when I'm like thinking.
Interesting. Yeah, can you show it to us on screen, please? Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. That's not nerdy, actually. Yeah.
But yeah, I think so. For me is, but I don't think are the more nerdy things.
We were discussing about the picture behind you too. Do you want to share
Yeah,
that
yeah.
too?
Yeah, so these actually are to open conversation, no? And just everyone, when we do some meetings, they say, what are those there? And it's conversation opening. And also because sometimes I mostly identify as the monkey. And then as we were discussing, no, and then I need to be a little bit of a wolf and a little bit of a lion sometimes, just 5% of the time. But normally I'm like a monkey. So
Interesting.
very, very free, very talky, very open mind, joking a lot normally. So sometimes I have also to be very serious and to be on the point and so on.
So the 5 and 5 and the rest is the monkey.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it, Florence. I like your reality check here. The companion. Who is your favorite AI companion that you reach out to?
And normally for coding, I use Copilot nowadays when I know that it's something simply. But again, I need also to check always if it's right. So for very specific things. But yeah, normally Copilot and Visual Studio Code when using Visual Studio Code. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, you've been a pleasure to listen to. You've got some great, thinking in terms of how you are able to deliver what you're researching, and it's very intriguing to listen to your conversation. And I love the pace at which you kind of deliver. So thank you so much, Florence. I think it's been a wonderful, to have you in Hikigai Studios, and I really look forward to having more conversations with you. Maybe we could even bring in some of your students, and also have like a panel discussion. Maybe make it a reality check for them while they're here. And also to all your listeners, the listeners from Hikigai Studios and everybody you're working with in your university, let's keep building the more autonomic future that we are looking for. And good luck with all your work, and look forward to having you more often with Hikigai Studios.
Thank you very much, Alita, for the nice words and also for inviting again. It was very interesting. And thanks also to your team for the great job that you are doing.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.